have joined us today. It's always a blessing. I count it a really great opportunity to know that you have joined us as we try to share some different segues about what we believe to be relevant, to be apropos to faith, family, and freedom. Those words have been chosen carefully because I think they really capsulize basically about what our lives are all about. Our faith as we worship the God of heaven as best we can determine it. Our families that, well, you know, it's been said as the family goes, so goes the church. And as the churches go, so go the families. Will Durant said that the family is the nucleus of civilization. So we need strong families. We're seeing a generation today, or perhaps two, of generational maybe disregard for some of our values. And of course, our freedoms, they must always be fought for. We must always be vigilant, be diligent. I've heard it said, I believe it was President Reagan that said that he didn't want one day for his children or his posterity to have to ask the question, what was it once like to live in America where men were free? We must contend for that. I know it may seem ubiquitous, or it may seem rather trite, but it's not a trite matter. It's not just a simplistic euphemism that people throw around. We're talking about the preservation of our freedoms. I believe that you'll like the segue we have now. Let's cancel the culture. Remove anything offensive, but keep politicians in power who could care less about the majority thinking of this nation, and a majority it is. An overwhelming majority wants term limits for these Potomac fever, arrogant would-be lawmakers. And have we gotten it? How about the 10 Commandments posted in the public square? Statistics show an overwhelming percent of the people would approve it. Yet it is as though to the political hacks, a public referendum would approve their thinking. Has any fact checkers called to ask your opinion as to where money should be allocated to gender transformation? You simply cannot make this stuff up. And unfortunately, in many so-called fundamental churches, we hear of members who have given their approval to this idiocy by endorsing the agendas of these radical socialists. It would be absolutely laughable were it not so serious. And the Bible reminds us that God will laugh at our calamities when we continue in our rebellion. If pastors are afraid to share the truths of their preaching and feel they have to put up with such nonsense for fear of alienating their congregations, may God have mercy upon them. Programming, I'm always exploring, looking, and trying to find materials that we feel would be beneficial for you. We're just not trying to fill up time with, just a lot of maybe talking or whatever. So many of us have found the art of almost saying something, and I don't want that to be pertinent in my situation. So we try to use our time very diligently and use it very responsibly. The song that we have today, and I think so many of you seem to enjoy that, is a song the Dixie Melody Boys sang, and we have used this song in our church, and I have heard it time and time again, how that the Lord will make a way somehow. Isn't that wonderful to be able to rely and to rest upon that proclamation? The Lord will make a way somehow. And then we're also going to feature another short minuet by the late Billy Sunday. I don't know, somehow he kind of got into my thinking lately, and although he's been dead for many, many years, the late Billy Sunday, probably in his heyday, would have been one of the more, if not maybe the most popular evangelists of his time. And in many churches where I attend, they'll have a picture of Billy Sunday or whatever, and so many fundamentalists, they revere his memory, and he stood for something, and he wasn't afraid to call sin by its name. And that seems to be lacking in many places today. We try to glamorize it. Billy Sunday didn't. I hope that you'll enjoy both of these segues as we present them now.
I am on the heavenly highway, leading to the land above. All this world I have forsaken, just to serve the one that I love. When the way grows rough and rugged, Lord, before the cross I bow. I say it to my soul, be patient, the Lord will make a way somehow. Sometimes I get so tired and weary as I journey on my way. When my faith begins to fail me, it's then I steal away and pray. I get a little glimpse of heaven, while at his feet I humbly bow. I say it to my soul, why worry? The Lord will make a way somehow. When my friends misunderstand me and refuse to shake my hand, Satan tells me I'm a failure, but I firmly take my stand. Let the world despise and leave me, Jesus is a friend, that's true. Oh, how sweet to hear him whisper, I will make a way for you. Lord, I need someone to lead me along this rough and rugged way. Hear me, Lord, and give me comfort every time I kneel and pray. Only grant to me this favor, as low before your feet I bow. Then I hear him whisper, fear not, I will make a way somehow. Sometimes I get so tired and weary as I journey on my way. When my faith begins to fail me, it's then I steal away and pray. I get a little glimpse of heaven, while at his feet I humbly bow. I say it to my soul, why worry? The Lord will make a way somehow. I say it to my soul, why worry? The Lord will make a way somehow.
Many have wondered what caused Billy Sunday to be used so greatly of God. One biographer sums it up the best for us when he wrote, Sunday's successes lay not in his colorful language, not in his energetic style, nor in his organizational genius. Rather, it was born from the following spiritual qualities: an unreserved consecration to the task of preaching the gospel, a consummate conviction of the lostness of sinners, and a compassion to win them to the Savior, the awareness of the anointing of the Holy Spirit on his ministry, and his absolute need of the Spirit's empowering, and a passionate prayer life. Homer Roadheaver gave personal testimony to this.
If you'd walk close to the bathroom when he was shaving, you'd hear him talking to the Lord about it. He'd say, now, Jesus, this is a hard proposition down here. I don't know exactly what to preach today, You'll have to show me. You'll have to give me freedom about this so I'll know your way for me. Riding with him in the automobile to the tabernacle, you'd hear him talking to the Lord. And about everything he did through the day, at any time, he was silently talking to the Lord. Billy Sunday's prayer life was the heart of all his work. He gave credit to God always for the success of his work.
It's time to plan for the 47th Annual Southern Gospel Singing at Sea Cruise. Join Andrew and Shirlene Phipps as you depart from Port Canaveral for the trip, January 30th through February 3rd, 2023, for warm sunshine and tropical breezes in the Caribbean. With 30 of the top Southern Gospel groups in the nation, you will be entertained and you'll be inspired by the best in Southern Gospel preaching. Dine on delicious foods, see the sights, and bask in the warm glow of Christian fellowship on the world's largest all-Christian cruise to the Bahamas. Hurry, because this trip of a lifetime sells out fast. All that is needed now is a small deposit, and you can continue to pay over time. For more information, call Andrew Phipps at 765-744-4239.
Hello, friends. This is Andrew Phipps, and I believe that we need all of the materials that we can gather to help us as we combat the attack upon our faith, our family, and our freedoms. We need to be educated. And I have a handbook that has been given to state legislatures. It's been given to members of Congress. It's a colorfully created handbook that has graphs, charts, quotes, and different things in it. You'll be impressed with it. And also we have DVDs. We have CDs that are God and Country, Return to Greatness, and Faith, Family, and Freedom, some other wonderful materials. See the contact information on the screen. Be sure that you order some because these will be of a tremendous help. They are supplemental materials to help you in your Christian walk. And may God bless. Some challenging information today. I think we have a clip from the late Milton Friedman, who was a very conservative economist, and his wit and his analysis of fairly complex situations, kind of like Thomas Sowell, put him in a very special class as far as I'm concerned. And he could take very complex situations and deduce them to their lowest common denominator. And he was a very champion of freedom in every situation. He felt like that freedom to choose the school of your choice, freedom to make decisions without government interference. I'm not so sure that he was what some economists would call a laissez-faire person, where he wanted no government regulation, but I would say that he probably advocated for a very limited situation. But you know, in our schools, unfortunately, it seems like that from what we can gather, there has been a penetration of very radical economics, or the idea of doing away with teaching the fundamentals. When we approach the classroom with the idea that we need to indoctrinate, and that especially we don't need parental input, that the government should be able to dictate what the outcome should be, that is a very slippery slope and a very dangerous one. You know, education, in my opinion, is the idea that you acquire knowledge so that it will change attitudes, and hopefully the attitudes will change behavior. When I think most of us, or at least those of us that maybe in a little bit of the more senior category age-wise, we can remember when we were just taught teaching that was didactic. It had a reason, had a purpose. Years ago, under Noah Webster, the father of what we call modern American education, they taught even from the old base psalm reader, New England Primer, and it always had a moral conclusion. But when John Dewey came along, he said that man doesn't have a soul, there is no God. And so when we began to take the influence of morality out of the classrooms, and when we began to mandate and say that we're going to elevate people that haven't achieved, even though we know they haven't achieved, and we're going to give them a status so it doesn't hurt feelings, and that we're going to have an equality of outcomes, we have seen the denigration of schools to the utmost. It cannot be. We must allow teachers the freedom to teach, but they do not have a right to impose transgender transformation upon our children, to advocate the mutilation of biological bodies to produce something that the child is not. God help us. The Lord made us in His own image, and He knew exactly what we need, and He made us exactly what He wants us to be. So I think that in our educational systems, we're going to have to fight the organizations like the American Federation of Teachers that gives to very liberal causes and supports them financially, or gives to these causes that want to advocate abortion on demand, or like some of the list, that we see from time to time. We must stand strong, and I think that's why that parochial schools, home schools, I think that's why that we see private schools doing well, is that people have gotten tired of what they see. Unfortunately, it may get to the point in time where education will become just general, public education will become just for those that couldn't afford to do anything else, and wouldn't that be a tragedy? School selection should not be based upon a zip code where you live. I hope today that this little segues that we're going to present, maybe it'll bring you a point of view that you can think about. Let's go to it right now.
The whole justification for governmental public schooling was in order to provide a common framework so you could have citizens who could harmoniously exist together in a single, free, democratic society. The concept today has tended to go in the other direction. The modern view became that, after all, an individual was an innocent puppet pushed one way or another by the social forces that impinged on him. That you couldn't blame an individual for anything, that wasn't his fault. It was society that was responsible. That the ultimate unit of our society was a collectivity rather than the individual. That you had social responsibility, not individual responsibility. And this was associated with a view that there were experts, people who knew what was good for people better than they did for themselves. That after all, you couldn't let an individual decide what he was going to do because he might make the wrong choice. And it was up to those of us who were in the elite class, who knew more about what was right, who had the proper social point of view, not to dictate to the individual, of course, but to guide him in the right direction, to make sure that he did what was good for himself. And that tendency has manifested itself very strongly in our school systems. In the 19th century, the schools, even in crowded cities and in urban cities, might not have been affluent, they might not have had the best facilities, but they had an atmosphere in which the individual was made responsible for his own development and own learning, and he was given an opportunity to learn and develop. And that was a concept. In the 20th century, the concept has been that the schools are an expression of society's values and interests and should be imposed upon the child, and that the child should be made to do what's good for him, and that the major problem in schooling was to get the child out of the hands of his ignorant and not very sophisticated parents, and put the child in the hands of the sophisticated and knowledgeable educational experts who could guide him along the correct way. I believe in a very diverse society. I believe it's highly desirable to preserve variety and diversity and different kinds of things. But it has to be a variety and a diversity within a uniform set of standards, a uniform set of institutions, ideas.
This coming April the 17th, join Andrew Phipps and Dr. Jerry Harmon for an unforgettable trip to England and Scotland for the Christian Heritage Tour. You'll have the privilege of seeing sights in London such as the British Museum and the Tower of London, Westminster Abbey and Buckingham Palace. We will visit Oxford and Cambridge and the Church of John Wycliffe, the morning star of the Reformation. In Scotland, we see the John Knox House, among many other exciting places. We will also have a very special stop at the Metropolitan Tabernacle Church where Charles Spurgeon pastored almost a century and a half ago. The price of the Christian Heritage Tour includes your international airfare, breakfast and dinner daily, a professional tour guide, and accommodations at all our lovely hotels. To request a brochure or a link to register online for this trip, email Brother Andrew Phipps at phippsgosp@aol.com or Aaron Reynolds at aaronreynolds818@gmail.com. Space will run out fast, so get registered soon.
And friends, I have in my hands the Christian Heritage England and Scotland tour that will be departing April the 17th this coming year, 2023, and we will be returning stateside on April the 27th. There are so many things in this brochure, things like your hotel accommodation, and we've asked for the best that we can get. 7 breakfasts, 7 dinners. We've got a tour host that should be very well trained. We will be traveling in our own motor coach once we get there. I think that you'll find the points of interest, whether it's Charles Haddon Spurgeon's church or John Bunyan, where he was beaten for his faith, and where he was in prison, actually. And there are so many notables, whether it was John Knox in Scotland, John and Charles Wesley. Of course, they wrote some of the great hymns of the faith. There are so many things, it's just too many for us to enumerate, but we'd like to share this brochure with you. Just call us 765-744-4239, or you can send it to our email, phippsgosp@aol.com. I'm going to be looking forward to being with you at the next special opportunity. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful day and a great week. May God bless each one, and this is Andrew Phipps with Faith, Family, and Freedom. Each year at the Christmas season, it is a blessing to reflect upon the goodness and majesty of this special time when in all recorded history, no event has ever shaken the world with such a proclamation like this, that God had visited man and was born just like the ancient prophets had foretold, to a virgin, and that Mary would conceive and bear the Christ child. The authenticity of this miraculous birth was validated in the scriptures as to the time, place, and how and for what reasons this birth would mean to the whole world, then, now, and forever. How does one comprehend the awesome significance of such an event that even a star, his star, would appear in the galaxies, so that in the far distant regions of the earth, wise men knew that there was something very special about what was happening in the constellations? These visual effects could not be dismissed. This radiance meant this was a once-in-a-lifetime event. No one had ever witnessed such a time or such a special occurrence. The heavens were moved into just the precise place, and angelic praise was heard with such melodious quality that shepherds in the field were moved to join in with singing and anthems. The song, "The Wonderful Story of Love," proclaims Wonderful story of love, tell it to me again. Wonderful story of love, wake the immortal strain. Angels with rapture announce it. Shepherds with wonder receive it. Sinner, oh, won't you believe it? Wonderful story of love. On behalf of Shirlene and myself, may we wish you a blessed Christmas and a Happy New Year. And this is Andrew Phipps.